Hello and welcome back to the Widow podcast. This week, I want to talk to you a little bit about anxiety and how it can show up in grief. The two, for me, almost feel intertwined, and that anxiety is almost one of the unnamed stages of grief. I've yet to meet someone who has been affected by a significant loss in their lives that doesn't have some kind of anxiety. Because when we lose someone we love, especially a life partner, we are thrown into a world we don't want, that we didn't ask for, that we don't understand, and we do not recognize. We feel exposed and vulnerable. Everything that made us feel safe and secure has gone. So of course, for me, anxiety is a normal part of the grieving process. And I think it shows up for most of us in different ways, but it's there. We've lost our sense of safety and control. So surely it's natural to feel that anxiety, that worry, and that fear. I know I certainly did. From the minute Simon died, I felt fearful, hugely fearful. And the anxiety came on quite quickly for me, really. I think certainly within, the first 3 weeks. I remember on the day of Simon's funeral, I was sat in the kitchen with my sister, and I said, I feel weird. I feel weird in my head, and I had a really bad headache. My vision felt a bit funny. It almost felt like something was seriously wrong. I was just sat there thinking, oh God, is something going to go wrong? Is something going to go wrong today? And bless my sister, she researched it. She looked it up straight away, and discovered that actually, it's anxiety, and it's the body's way of kind of saying to you, hang on a minute, something's not right, and I need some attention. I need tending to. But it was horrible, and it was scary. And it shows up in different ways for us all, but it can actually be quite physical. I personally could not believe the physicality of grief and how it showed up in my body. And, from that time on Simon's funeral day, in my head, there was another time where I thought I was having a heart attack. I remember phoning my friend in the night and getting around, and I called an ambulance. I ended up in hospital. I was convinced I was having a heart attack. It was going up my jaw, my neck, into my jaw. It was going down my left arm. I had sensations in my fingers, the chest pain, the shortness of breath, the palpitations. My body felt like it was all going horribly wrong. And of course, I'm on my own at home with the kids, and in that, I'm then thinking, oh God, what if I die and the children come in and find me in the morning dead? So that's feeding your anxiety, all these underlying thoughts that you have. Your world has been shattered. We are reminded of our own mortality and how little control we have over our lives when somebody dies. And that's scary. And that really brings it home to us, doesn't it? That we're not invincible. Whether you get an illness and you die over time, or you just die suddenly. People do literally drop down dead. Simon did. He literally dropped down dead. I believe he was dead before his head even hit the floor when he collapsed. He was gone. It was that quick. And that's scary. That in that minute, that moment, that second, it's over. And for us to have to live with that and understand the impact of it and how I guess how vulnerable we all are all the time. You know, that life that we lived before, where we, you know, felt fairly unscathed. I know I did. I know other people have had other losses, so they didn't necessarily feel that. But for me, this is my first significant loss. And I knew bad things happened in the world. I was a nurse, I was a midwife, but they hadn't happened to me, which in its own kind of way brought some anxiety to me, because I remember saying to Simon when we were on holiday, literally about 3 or 4 weeks before he died, I remember saying to Simon, I'm 40 next year, and I'm actually really worried because I've got to kind of 40 years old nearly, and nothing really bad has happened to me. And I'm worried that something really bad is going to happen to me. Little did I know, you know. So it's a lot for us to comprehend. It's a lot for us to take on. And you know, it might be something that you've experienced before, anxiety. It might be something completely new to you. Certainly was to me. I haven't ever really suffered. I felt nervous and uncomfortable, of course I have, but not that anxiety, not that deep-rooted anxiety that was showing up for me. And again, it's different for everyone. You know, you can have palpitations, dizziness, sweating, dry mouth, nausea, trembling, headache, blurred vision, shortness of breath, chest pain. You know, that there's many ways in which it can show up. And for some people, it might be a very internal feeling that to you know, with all those things, if you felt those things, you'd probably be able to see that somebody was feeling quite uncomfortable. And it can be quite obvious. For others, you might not be able to see. You know, some people, I know people that if you were to look at them, you'd think they're absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with them. They're larger than life. They're having a great time. They're chatting away. They're happy. But there's all this anxiety going on under the surface. It's really hard. It's really hard when it's like that, because I think sometimes there's shame around it. And when we layer things with shame and we keep them in and we don't talk to anyone about it, that makes it worse for us, because we've got it all in us, and we've got to learn to let it out, to release it. And I think, you know, a lot of what I've learned in my grieving process and a lot of what I've read about, you know, I've noticed quite a few things about anxiety. And I think one of the biggest things that has kind of jumped out at me and really made sense is the fact that we try and avoid it. We try and push it away, maybe don't talk to anyone about it, you know, pretend it's not happening. It'll pass. Sometimes that's easier to do than others. But this makes your fears and your anxieties grow. It's normal when your life is hit by tragedy to feel anxiety. It's learning how to manage that anxiety so that it doesn't become something that I guess, that holds us back in life, you know, that keeps us in a place that maybe the fear of trying new things or going to new places. It might make us withdraw from people. It might make us cancel plans last minute. We might become very disconnected from family and friends and society. It might stop us from going to work. It has a huge impact on us, and it has a huge impact on our mental health, you know, because if we're pulling back from all these things and the connections that we need in life to help us heal and grow and find our way in our new world, that's going to have a huge impact on our mental health. So it's trying to face our anxieties, trying to face our fears, and think about what it is that is causing us to feel like that. You know, I'll talk to you in a minute about some tools you can use to help you in the moment with anxiety, but long term, you know, we have to think about, what do we think is triggering this? What are we worried about? And one of my huge things that I was worried about was what would happen to my children if something happened to me. And I know this is a huge concern for many. I had to get everything in place. I've had to get I know where they're going to go. I know how they're going to be supported. Financially, I have set up a life insurance policy. I have set up a critical illness insurance policy. My will, it states where I want the children to go, how I want them to live, when they should be able to do certain things, what I would support them in, what I wouldn't support them in. I've been quite explicit in my wishes, not controlling. Obviously, I've said, things are going to change when I die, and I trust the people that I've kind of entrusted with my children, I suppose, to make those decisions. But maybe with a bit of guidance from how I would maybe want things to develop in a certain way. But understanding that I can't control things from the grave, I can't control things whilst I'm here. So it's looking at that. Maybe it's looking at your finances. Are you worried about your finances? So maybe it's taking control of that. You worried about your health? Do you maybe need to take a bit more control of that? Do you need to look after you better, eat better, exercise more, stay connected with people a bit better? What is it that's making you feel anxious? Sometimes it's nothing obvious. Sometimes it's just an anxiety that's there. It sits with us and we carry it, and we don't always know what triggers it and why we feel that way. You have those mornings, don't you, where you wake up and your stomach is in knots, absolute knots. And I had it this morning, actually. I woke up and my stomach was in knots. I felt sick. I felt very agitated. And I didn't know why. There's nothing going on, today that was a reason for me to feel like that. I'd slept well last night. So I then think, right, what is it I need? This morning, I needed to go for a run. So I went for a run and that helped me. But it's figuring out what does help you in those moments. There's been other times when I've been sat in front of the telly of an evening, and all of a sudden my palms start sweating, my heart starts racing. I get this funny feeling in my head, which I find really hard to describe, but it's like something's really wrong in my head. And I start to panic, and I'm like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And in my head, I'm going, calm down. It's okay. Don't panic, deep breaths. And I'm trying to calm myself down. But my mind is going like, oh God, something's going to happen. Something's going to go wrong. And I will always go to that place. I will always go to that place of something's going to go wrong. And this is going to end in disaster. So it's learning to recognize your thought patterns. It's learning to understand what's going on in your head in those moments. Sometimes it can come out of nowhere and there's no rhyme or reason to it. So how can you manage it in that moment? So it's sometimes when these things come up for us, we just want to push it away and avoid it. But actually, I think it's quite important to face our fears, face our anxieties. Like I say, look at the things that you can control. There's so much in life we can't control. We don't know what's going to happen from one minute to the next. So what can you do? What can you put into place that helps you feel that little bit more in control in your life around whatever it is you need? We don't know what's going to happen to us. We don't know what's going to happen after we die. We don't know what will happen financially, jobs, all that kind of stuff. But what we can do is put things in place that just make us feel like we've done the best that we can if that worst case scenario should happen. And I know at the moment I'm starting to feel a bit of concern about my business. And if something happens to me, I obviously do my business. So what will happen? So I know I need to ask somebody and give somebody the passwords and the login details and access to, the things I use, so that they can come in and fold it up. Do you see what I mean? Like tidy it up, sort the clients out, and do what would need doing in the absence of me. And I know that's playing on my mind a little bit. No, it's not causing me anxiety, don't get me wrong, but it's just recognizing what things are maybe on your mind a little bit that could result in causing you a little bit of anxiety, because life is difficult, right? And that there's things that are going to be thrown at us all the time. Life is challenging. So, we can't control it all, but look at what you can control in certain situations and think, well, will that make me feel a little bit better about it? So maybe look at that, look at those things and see if any of that helps you. Now, in terms of managing the anxiety, I think first and foremost, connection with others, having people around you that love you, that support you, that help you. And I know a lot of you struggle with that because you feel like people aren't there for you in the way you'd like them to be, that you don't get the support that you would wish or you'd hope that you'd get in the situation that you find yourself in. And again, we can't control other people, but maybe it's about going out and finding your people that, do get it, that do understand, that you think will support you and will nurture you through this. Connection is key. It really is. So finding people that you're connected with, also connecting with yourself. We often feel very disconnected from ourselves because we suddenly don't know who we are, where we're heading, where we fit in, what's our purpose, why are we here? Like, everything that is attached to our identity feels very different. Social circles feel different, we feel different. So it's learning to reconnect with you again and who you are and what's important to you. I think that has been one of the biggest things in my journey, was reconnecting with me, but also connecting with your loved one. Death takes the person away from us. They are physically no longer with us, but the love continues. The love doesn't die. So how can we continue our relationship with our person, those continuing bonds? And thinking about what you can do to ensure that you stay connected to your person. And that's going to be different for everyone. And there's many ways that you can do that. So find your way, maybe it's wearing one of their jumpers. Maybe it's writing them a letter at the end of the day. Maybe it's going for a walk and talking to them. It might be lighting a candle. You might have made something that you like to look at. It might be having a picture up. It might be being the things you love most about them. It might be doing something in their honor. It can do anything. It can be anything. It's your thing, but something that helps you to feel connected to your person. So, stay connected. That is vital. Manage your stress and your overwhelm, because this will cause your anxiety to skyrocket. We put a lot of expectation on ourselves. When a loved one dies, we try to continue with our life as it was. We then have grief to deal with, which is a full-time job all on its own, with no days off and no holidays. It's you are constantly grieving, and that's hard, that's heavy. So then you have the role of your partner to take on as well, because we all have roles and responsibilities in our relationships. We all fit in and do our bit where we can. And when your person goes, you suddenly realize all the things they did in your relationship, in your life, and you then are like, I've got to do all that now. And that might be little things, from taking out the bins or hoovering the house, cleaning the windows, to big things like sorting out the finances, keeping the garden tidy, doing the DIY around the house, keeping the car going. Whatever it is, they had their roles and responsibilities in the relationship, and somebody's got to take those on, and that somebody is normally you. So it's looking at, how can you manage your time? What can you say no to? Where can you get help from? How can you learn to manage that stress and that overwhelm? So make sure you're talking to someone about how you feel and what's going on for you. Face your fears, face what's showing up. That what we avoid persists. It does. It's not avoided. We say what we resist persists, because if we're trying to avoid things, they're just going to grow. They're going to follow us around. It doesn't go anywhere. But if you can face your feelings, your emotions, your fears, that can transform you. Honestly, it really can, because you're taking back your power. You're kind of looking that fear in the face and going, I know you're there and it's okay. I'm going to manage this in the best way that I can. And just sitting with that for a minute. Write down your thoughts if you want to. Right, if you find it hard to talk to somebody, journal. One of the biggest things that has helped me is my breathing. That might sound weird, but when you are stressed, you will notice that you start to shallow breathe. Okay, your breaths will be, you're not filling your lungs. You're breathing quickly and shallow. When we start to feel that anxiety coming on, it's about taking those deep breaths, that really come down into our stomach, that really expand our diaphragm. So you can put your hand on your tummy and take a really big deep breath in. Okay, count if you can. Count to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever's comfortable for you. When you're breathing out, try and make the out breath slightly longer than the in breath. And if you have to breathe in for 4 and out for 5, then brilliant. And try and make those as long as you can. Count, because again, that's kind of distracting your mind, but you're calming your breath down and taking those deep breaths kicks in your parasympathetic nervous system and slows everything down for you. And that's what you want. You want everything to slow down. You want your heart rate to slow down. You want your breathing to slow down, and you will feel the calmness that brings for you. Okay. One thing I know that works well for people is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So looking around, trying to distract yourself from what's going on for you, but looking around wherever you are, looking for 5 things you can see, 4 things that you can touch, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. And again, it just makes you stop, look around, look at your environment and see what's out there. Basics like eating well, staying hydrated, really important for us. Really, our body is in a heightened state of shock. We're in that fight flight mode. It needs to be well looked after. That will help us hugely with anxiety. Exercise. I cannot put enough importance onto exercise for you. It releases those stress hormones. It brings in those feel-good hormones. It is so good for us mentally, physically. I just would urge you, even if you can just get outside for 20 minutes every day for a power walk. You don't have to start taking up gyms or running or cycling. Power walking is enough. It is enough, and if you can do 20 minutes a day and just slowly increase it, it will do the world of good. And get yourself out in nature. Go somewhere different where you live, I love going up hills. I don't know why. I just love climbing up hills and being higher. It makes me feel closer to Simon. Go, get out in nature, do it regularly. If in the middle of feeling anxious and overwhelmed and you're starting to get worried, sometimes watching something, listening to something, distracting yourself from what you're doing, maybe binge watching a few episodes of your favorite series, or listening to a podcast, putting on some really loud music, your favorite tune, distracting yourself. Some people find an elastic band on their wrist and flicking that can be enough of a distraction, because it's taking your focus somewhere else. Make sure you are resting and relaxing enough. Sleep is often a cause of anxiety, or lack of sleep is often a cause of anxiety. So, make sure you're resting and relaxing in the day where you can, because exhaustion will make your anxiety so much worse. So really make sure that you're looking after you and look at how you can make your sleep a bit better. You often find your sleep will improve by facing your fears, facing your emotions, and dealing what's going on for you within. When we distract ourselves too much in the day and then we go to bed at night, of course, it's all going to come to the forefront because you've got nothing to distract you. So it's good to learn to face these things in the day, or, journal before you go to bed at night, just to get things out of your head and onto paper. Otherwise, it just whir around. They just whir around in our heads. And just remember, your thoughts are not facts. We have so many thoughts going in and out of our minds all day, every day. I think we have something between 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day. That's a lot of thoughts, you know, and I think something ridiculous like 80% are negative and 95% are repetitive. So that's a lot of negative, repetitive thoughts going around in our heads. Just remember, a lot of them are not facts. You have created something in your mind. And it's some, you know, if something's bugging you and really playing on your mind, think about, is that a fact? Do I know that to be true 100%? Can I tell myself a different story? Can I change the narrative? If it is something that is really worrying you, face it, look at it, think about how you can control elements around this concern, this worry, this fear, to help you feel like you are more in control, like you are doing the best that you can. Trying to avoid it constantly and not face what's going on for us is only going to make it worse. It will persist, it will stay, and it will often grow and become unmanageable. And if you are really struggling to manage your anxiety, then speak to someone. Go and speak to your GP, find a therapist, find someone that can help you, because there is help out there. You can find it and you will find a way through it. I know it's scary and I know it's horrible, but you don't have to do this alone. There are many people out there that feel very, very similar to you. Speak to them, find them. You know, they are out there, and it's something that comes up a lot in a lot of my groups and in my sessions. It's a big thing in grief. It's real and it's horrible. So do what you can to look after you. Find ways of managing what you're feeling, what you're going through in the moment, and learn to find ways of facing your fears and feeling like you have a little bit more control over some of the things in your life. Look at the things you can control and try not to worry too much about the things that you can't. I'm sending you all lots of love as always. Thank you again for joining me. I hope some of that has been helpful, and I will see you again on the next episode of the Widow Podcast. Take care. Lots of love. Bye-bye.